The HOA said I couldn't keep my boat in my driveway. Just a small, harmless boat, they claimed. But they didn't know I didn't just own a boat, I owned the entire lake, and when their fishing club showed up thinking they could take what wasn't theirs, everything changed. Suddenly, rules, fines, and petty demands didn't matter anymore. The tables were about to turn in ways they never imagined. How do you fight an entire HOA when you hold all the cards? And, more importantly, what happens when revenge is legal, public, and utterly satisfying? Before the conflict, life in the community was peaceful, almost idyllic. I had settled here years ago, drawn by the charm of tree-lined streets, friendly neighbors, and the calm glimmer of the nearby lake. Mornings were filled with the soft hum of lawnmowers and birdsong, evenings with casual strolls and neighbors waving from their porches. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other, yet no one pried too deeply. My home reflected pride and care. A neat driveway, a modest boat gently bobbing near the dock, and gardens that seemed to bloom just a little brighter than the rest. Life was simple, satisfying, and routine, until the HOA started making rules that seemed harmless at first. A note here, a minor demand there, almost polite in tone but somehow unsettling. Subtle lines were being drawn, boundaries tested, and the first hints of absurd bureaucracy began creeping into what had once felt like a safe, friendly neighborhood. The tension didn't announce itself with shouting or confrontation. It whispered, in the form of memos, small fines, and oddly specific rules about lawn ornaments, boat placement, and property appearances. I noticed these little disturbances, shrugged them off, and tried to comply, but deep down, I sensed a storm brewing, a conflict that could escalate far beyond mere paperwork. And in that quiet unease, a question lingered. How far would the HOA go before this ordinary life became a battleground? It started subtly. A polite note about the boat. Friendly reminder that it shouldn't remain in the driveway. I moved it slightly, thinking that would suffice. But the fines came anyway, multiplying overnight, each letter citing obscure clauses buried deep in the HOA handbook. The neighbors, once friendly, suddenly became agents of enforcement. Late-night voicemails threatened penalties. Unannounced inspections scrutinized property lines. Passive-aggressive notes left in the mailbox reminded me I was being watched. Every interaction escalated tension. Attempts to reason with the HOA met cold bureaucracy, meetings postponed, calls ignored, rules cited that no one could explain. I complied with small demands, yet new restrictions appeared like clockwork. The lake, once a serene backdrop, became a symbol of ownership and control. Each fine, each petty rule felt like a personal attack, and I realized this wasn't just about a boat. It was about asserting authority through fear. The HOA's harassment expanded. Neighbors who showed support were subtly pressured, rumors were spread, and community meetings once friendly became hostile tribunals. Every glance, every whispered comment, every new memo reinforced that this was not a simple misunderstanding. I documented everything meticulously. Letters, photos, meeting notes, but the sense of helplessness weighed heavily. I felt trapped in a bureaucratic nightmare where logic was meaningless and pettiness ruled. The tipping point arrived with a formal demand. Move the boat immediately or face escalating fines. Friends and family urged caution. They advised compliance, patience, diplomacy. But the absurdity was glaring. The HOA was overstepping, infringing, and threatening without cause. Every minor concession from them was replaced by another arbitrary demand. I had to decide, submit to petty tyranny or respond in a way that could finally expose their overreach. Cliffhangers punctuated every step. Would I pay the fines and lose dignity, or would I defy the order and risk escalation? Would the next HOA meeting bring resolution, or descend further into absurdity and humiliation? The stakes kept rising, drawing the tension higher, preparing the stage for a confrontation that no one in the neighborhood would forget. The confrontation came suddenly, yet it had been building for weeks. Armed with meticulous documentation and a quiet but firm resolve, I faced the HOA at their meeting. The air was thick with tension. The board, accustomed to unchallenged authority, now met a homeowner who had studied every clause, every rule, every fine, and had prepared counter-arguments that exposed every overreach. As the discussion heated, murmurs rippled through the audience. Neighbors leaned forward, curiosity and tension mingling with shock. I revealed evidence, letters sent and ignored, inspections scheduled with no legal basis, fines issued contrary to the HOA's own rules. The room shifted. The president's confident smirk faltered. Board members glanced at one another nervously. They had assumed compliance. They had assumed fear. I had neither. Then came the public twist. I made clear, calmly and unequivocally that the lake was my property. Their fishing club had no legal claim. Their letters and demands were legally baseless. I had the documentation, the maps, and the legal precedent to back it up. The reaction was instantaneous. Disbelief, panic, whispered debates among the board. What had seemed like petty authority was crumbling under the weight of evidence and clarity. Every moment crackled with tension, neighbors watching, the board flustered, and me maintaining composure while the tide turned. By the end of the meeting, the HOA's authority had been publicly undermined. Fines were withdrawn, rules reconsidered, and the fishing club faced immediate eviction. The power dynamic had flipped. What had been weeks of harassment and intimidation now ended with a single decisive blow: justice, clarity, and vindication. And as I walked away from that room, I knew the next chapter, the resolution, would not just be about personal victory, but about the lasting consequences for the entire neighborhood. After the dust settled, the neighborhood was quiet again, but nothing felt the same. The HOA, once a looming presence of petty rules and fines, had been exposed for what it truly was: a bureaucracy obsessed with control rather than community. Their threats lost all power. Their authority, undermined by careful documentation, legal clarity, and unwavering resolve, could no longer intimidate. The lake, once a stage for tension, now symbolized ownership, autonomy, and limits to overreach. It didn't celebrate loudly. Friends and neighbors offered congratulations, but the real victory was quiet: restoration of fairness, dignity, and normalcy. The fishing club had been evicted, and any attempts to assert control over the lake were met with firm legal resistance. No more memos. No more fines. No more threats. Relief, yes, but tempered with reflection. The long-term consequences rippled through the community. The HOA, chastened and embarrassed, became cautious, less arbitrary, less able to wield fear. Neighbors, who had stayed silent, now spoke openly about fairness, about standing up against absurd rules. My strategic patience and meticulous record-keeping became quietly legendary, a benchmark for anyone facing petty tyranny. Emotionally, the journey was transformative. Weeks of frustration and anxiety had forged resilience and clarity. I learned that bureaucracy could be challenged without resorting to pettiness. Knowledge, preparation, and measured action had tipped the scales in favor of fairness. Life returned to a new normal. The lake glimmered, the boat rested in its rightful place, neighbors waved again, and community rhythm resumed, but with awareness. Rules now carried weight only where they made sense. Authority was tempered by accountability. The conflict left an enduring legacy. Conversations changed, awareness grew, and neighbors understood that arbitrary power could be challenged. My victory became a quiet symbol of resistance and empowerment. The tale spread, cautioning other communities against unchecked bureaucracy, inspiring others to act strategically, legally, and calmly in defense of their rights. The ordeal revealed a deeper truth. It was never about a boat or a lake. It was about boundaries, fairness, and asserting rights against petty authority. By documenting abuses, remaining calm, and acting decisively, I had rewritten not only my own experience but also influenced the culture of the entire community. The HOA's legacy of fear had been replaced with accountability, and the quiet lesson lingered. Even entrenched authority can be challenged, and ordinary people armed with knowledge and courage can prevail. Looking back, I realized the personal transformation was as significant as the legal victory. Patience, clarity, and strategic action had overcome harassment. Standing up for fairness, even against entrenched bureaucracy, was not just necessary. It was empowering. The lake remained serene, the boat gently rocking, and the neighborhood thrived under a renewed sense of justice. And in that calm aftermath, one question lingered, unspoken but powerful. How many other communities could learn from this, and who else might find the courage to challenge systems that seek to control them?